You're not supposed to be listening. You're 2 seats away, minding your own business. Then someone leans in and says, "Did you hear what happened to?" And your body reacts before your mind does. Your head tilts. Your ears sharpen. Every other thought in your head goes quiet. You didn't decide to care. You just already do. Here's the strange part. That reflex isn't a flaw in your character. It's not proof you're petty or nosy or small. It's one of the oldest, most carefully engineered social tools your species ever built. And once you understand why it exists, you'll never feel quite the same shame about leaning in again. Welcome to Brain on a Leash, where the strange, ancient wiring behind ordinary human moments finally starts to make sense. Watch 2 chimpanzees for long enough and you'll notice something odd. They spend hours picking through each other's fur. Not because they're covered in bugs. Most of that time, there's nothing there to remove. The grooming itself is the point. It releases endorphins, it builds trust, it cements alliances. It's how primates say, without words, "I've got you and you've got me." For millions of years, that was the technology. Touch was the bond. But grooming has a hard limit. You can only groom one animal at a time. Research on primate social groups suggests an individual can only maintain reliable, trust-based bonds with somewhere around 50 others, using touch alone, and even that requires spending up to 20% of the entire day doing it. Fine for a troop of 40 chimpanzees. A serious problem the moment your ancestors' group started growing past that. So what do you do when your social circle outgrows your hands? This is where the Oxford anthropologist Robin Dunbar made an argument that reframes gossip entirely. Dunbar proposed that language itself evolved, in part, to solve exactly this problem. Talking let humans do something grooming never could. You can bond with several people at once. You can gossip while walking, while eating, while working with your hands doing something else entirely. Verbal gossip, in Dunbar's framing, isn't a lesser, lazier version of grooming. It's grooming that finally learned to scale. Which raises an obvious question. If gossip is really just social bonding, why does so much of it feel less like affection and more like judgment? Here's where it gets interesting. The psychologist Roy Baumeister studied what kind of information people actually seek out and share, and the pattern wasn't neutral. Negative gossip, who cheated, who lied, who can't be trusted, spreads faster and sticks harder than positive gossip ever does. Why would that be? Because for most of human history, knowing who was quietly failing to pull their weight mattered enormously more than knowing who was doing everything right. A free rider in your group, someone taking resources without contributing, could quietly drain a small band to collapse if nobody caught on. Gossip about violations wasn't idle judgment. It was a live threat detection system, running through conversation instead of the eyes. Think about what that means. Every time you felt a small thrill hearing about someone else's mess, that wasn't cruelty leaking out of you. That was an ancient alarm system, built for groups where everyone's survival depended on everyone else pulling their weight, still scanning for exactly the same signal. There's something worth sitting with here. Gossip isn't a leak in your character. It's the sound of an ancient bonding ritual, still running, with no hands left to use. Now here's where the mismatch shows up, and it's a big one. Dunbar's research also points to a rough ceiling on how many people a human mind can meaningfully track this way at once, somewhere around 150 stable relationships. That's it. That's roughly the size of the social world your gossip instinct was built to monitor. A tribe, a village, a group small enough that every scrap of social information was actually useful to you. Now think about your actual feed. A celebrity you've never met gets caught in a scandal, and you feel a pull to know everything about it. A stranger's divorce goes viral, and you read all 40 comments. None of these people are in your 150. None of them will ever affect whether you eat this week, or who protects you, or who you can trust with your children. Your gossip instinct doesn't know that, though. It only knows social violation detected, pay attention. It fires exactly as hard for a stranger with 3 million followers as it would have for someone in your actual tribe, because your brain has no built-in concept of person who cannot possibly matter to my survival. Have you ever caught yourself deep in a stranger's comment section wondering how you got there? That's not a willpower failure. That's your oldest social technology, still running its original program, aimed at a target it was never built to process. Tabloids, group chats about people who aren't in them, entire apps built around watching strangers' lives unravel in real time. These aren't new inventions of human nature. They're old software with a new, nearly infinite supply of raw material. This connects to something worth remembering from an earlier idea on this channel, the one about the Ringelmann effect, and why effort quietly disappears the moment it becomes invisible inside a group. Both of these are really about the same underlying truth. Your instincts weren't built for the scale of the modern world. One instinct assumed a group small enough that your individual effort was always noticed. This one assumes a group small enough that every piece of social information was actually relevant to your survival. Neither instinct got the memo that the group got bigger. bigger. Much bigger. None of this means you should feel guilty every time you're curious about someone else's life. Curiosity about your social world was never the problem. It's one of the most useful tools your ancestors ever had. The mismatch isn't that you care. It's that the target has changed size, from a village to a planet, and your instincts still can't tell the difference. So the next time you catch yourself leaning in a little closer or opening a stranger's profile you have no real reason to care about, don't read it as nosiness or smallness or a character flaw you need to fix. That's not idle curiosity asking to be judged. That's the same ancient bonding technology that once held small human groups together through nothing but conversation, still running exactly as designed, just pointed at a world your ancestors never could have imagined existed. You're not supposed to be listening, but some very old, very reliable part of you was built to lean in anyway. And once you see that clearly, you'll never feel quite the same way about it again. If you haven't seen the video on the Ringelmann effect and why groups make you lazier, that one pairs well with this. Until next time, keep your brain on a leash.